Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me already? Sorry. Yes. Maayong buntag. Welcome to another edition of Synergy's ePanel webinar series. I'm Germaine Reyes, the CEO of Synergy Market Research and Strategic Consultancy. Hi. And we'll be your host and moderator for this webinar. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, ePanel is Synergy's webinar series that puts together experts who are leaders or have established careers or consulting in certain fields. We invite a complementing mix of experts to get their opinions and ask them to share their experiences and knowledge on certain burning topics or those that are believed will be valued during these times when we are developing our business continuity and marketing programs for use during and beyond the quarantine period. We all know that we are in an unprecedented time. As learned from our webinar 2 weeks ago, entitled Quarantine Implications on Consumer Behavior, Attitudes, and Mindsets, marketing and business as we know it is changing or may have already changed because of this pandemic. These are disruptions in the macro environment that basically changed the way people behave, consume, spend, which in turn have affected their decision making, choice factors, home management, to name a few. And without a vaccine in the near horizon, we can't rely anymore on assumptions made in plans around our customers pre-COVID. Therefore, how do we navigate around these uncertain times when certainty won't be certain at a certain future for certain businesses and certain people? Our webinar starting today and in the next weeks will explore the how-tos so that brands and businesses built through the years will remain relevant during this hashtag business not usual days. Synergy has been working with companies to address problems, issues, and provide strategies through consumer insighting. We believe that with the power of consumer insighting, there will be aha or light bulb moments that we will encounter. It starts with information. And cliche it may sound, we all know that information is power. But we add to that, insighting is the light bulb that will help illuminate on a better understanding of what's happening around us and their implications on our business, brand management, future innovations, and other parts of our business. Thus, we hope that you will treat our ePanel as conversation starters. Let's have a convo around this. And it is our hope that with some of the learnings that you will gain here, you can bring these with you as you develop further your business continuity programs and strategies. So now, on to today's topic, social listening during social distancing. This is likened to consumer insighting during crisis. With social connections purely confined in the digital space, as we observe community quarantine, most people find solace going online or using social media to communicate, to be entertained, and to find an outlet to share what is going on in their lives. Pre-ECQ, the Philippines already topped world rankings when it comes to time spent on social media. I think everyone knows this already. But did you know that in the April results of We Are Social, we in fact registered the highest in the metric? Check this out. We spend more time in the internet in recent weeks. So we topped it with a 64% incidence out of the more than 73 million social media users in the Philippines. And please note that the 73 million internet users or social media users, they're almost equal, okay, are based on January 2020 metrics. So you can just imagine how that number went up in recent months. But it is also believed that this is also what's happening in other countries or the other parts of the world. Thus, as we mentioned in a webinar Synergy did last April 3 for a Learn, we mentioned that social listening is a potent approach in understanding what's being talked about online to get a glimpse of what people are thinking of, their needs and wants, in order to anticipate potential future behavior. During COVID, these conversations and posts would most probably have gone up at a staggering pace. These, we think, could lead to ideas for product innovation, pricing strategies, if ever, customer expectations management, customer experience redesigning, to name a few. We therefore need to harness the ability of social listening to help us through these uncertain days. How can we indeed harness the potential to engage further our customers, understand the changing customer profile and psyche, emerge product service innovations in these days? As consumers tighten budgets and limit spending to only the essentials, they reevaluate their priorities. Adding to that, several brands have already come under fire for tone deaf messages that consumers have perceived to be opportunistic or profiteering. What is a brand to do, therefore? At this time, listening first to consumers is key. This is to anticipate and serve our customers' needs better during these hashtag business not usual days. Now, before I introduce our esteemed panel of experts, would like to thank our partners who have made this ePanel webinar possible. Big thanks to Futureproof, who is our co-presenter for this webinar. Yay! Futureproof has been the partner of Synergy since we first launched the conference version of our seminar series entitled Consumer Insighting and Storytelling Conference. Futureproof innovates learning experiences such as this for Synergy, this webinar series, and they're behind the Alpha Mentorship Program. We also would like to thank our media partners who have been loyal supporters of Synergy's events. Thank you to Philippine Star and to Business World. And also big thanks to Marketing in Asia, or MIA, for their continued support. Now on to our panelists today. Our panelists are experts in social listening and have helped their clients from various industries, whether local or global in reach. They help them avert crisis, manage brand campaigns, monitor competition, help in customer experience management with the insights gleaned from social listening. The collective experiences of our panelists today will help us understand the power of social listening to help a brand, whether this be B2B or B2C, in crafting either their marketing or business programs to address customer needs these days. As new demands emerge, new business ideas can and will rise to answer those calls. And social listening can emerge for us nuggets of truths about our customers, or even or obtain business or product ideas, to name a few, in order for us to have a more proactive and less reactive stance in our planning of our programs. So therefore, please help me welcome our panelists today. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Christian Manalang. Hi, Mark. Are you on?
Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Mark is the head of social at Ogilvy Philippines, a multi-awarded advertising company. As co-lead of Ogilvy Philippines' fast-growing social practice, Mark oversees business development, social media strategy, and content operations for leading Manila-based businesses. Since the social team was launched in 2012, he has evolved social media operations in collaboration with the agency's practice leaders to drive, take note, double-digit growth year on year. So today, this includes the management of over 25 community and project managers in charge of content creation, publishing, response management, live coverage, and reporting for over 40 clients or 150 plus social channels. Oh my gosh, that's so dizzying. Okay. Uh, Hi, Mark. Yes.
Hello. Happy to be here.
So Yes. And just like in our first webinar, we have one of our panelists dialing into Zoom from Singapore. Let's all say hi to Mr. Olivier Girard,
Thank you, Germaine. Very
or
good
Ollie for short.
pronunciation.
Yes. Ollie is the Customer Success Director of APAC at Digimind. Ollie, as he is fondly known, is deeply passionate about helping his clients employ the best strategies for competitive and market intelligence within their organizations. At Digimind, he oversees clients across the Asia Pacific region, guiding them to harness social intelligence to reach their business goals. He's also a regular guest speaker at INSEAD and, am I right, ESSEC,
ESSEC, business schools.
ESSEC, Singapore's MBA and EMBA programs, where he advocates the power of competitive and market intelligence for business development. Before I give the floor to Mark, we just would like to share a few guidelines. Hang on, Ollie and Mark. Um, so we can make this webinar more interactive and learning experience. As a webinar attendee, okay, your microphones will be on mute by default. And in the event that any of our panelists get caught, don't panic. They will just dial in again. But if you, as panelists, get disconnected, just please click on the webinar link again that we have provided so that you can come back in. And please, please, we encourage you to ask questions. Take advantage of our experts here today. Please use the Q&A button if you have a specific question to ask so that we can differentiate just your hi and what the comments that you will provide through the chat button. But if you really have a specific question, please use the Q&A button. Okay. So I'd like to first say hi, Ollie and Mark. Please help me say hi to our panelists coming from. I think someone's from Kuala Lumpur. Wow. Hi, Zoraida. All right. And then there's Jai from Taguig. Hi, Jai. Maayong Buntag is also someone from down south in Visayas, I think. Okay, someone from KL. Hi, Sid. Siddhartha. All right. So just feel free to chat here, okay? All right. So now would like to know and allow you to well, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. So here to present social listening and how companies, big or small, can harness social listening. Let's all welcome Mr. Mark Manalang of Ogilvy, Philippines. So take it away, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Germaine, for that very kind introduction. Do you guys see my screen? All right. So just to share a bit about myself, not only have I been part of agency work for over 7 years now, I'm also a graduate of journalism. So when I was thinking about how to best share my thoughts on social listening, I was reminded of the 5 Ws and the H of journalism. And it was very similar when I tried to make my outline, right? So just so that we're also able to further appreciate what social listening is about, I've organized my quick talk accordingly, talking about the what, the where, the when, the who, the why, and the how of social listening. So what you can expect in the couple of slides um, would be an overview of what social listening is all about as a practice and how organizations like what Germaine alluded earlier, big or small, can leverage and really use this to make better decisions, right? So let me start by just talking about the need for listening. Why do we need to do social listening at all as an organization? Um, since this has been made available through technology and advancements, it's been obvious that social listening has been able to provide value depending on how much committed you are into doing it and depending on your objectives as well. So you can actually take a more passive approach to social listening, but ideally, you can just start with that, you move into a more reactive and proactive approach. And ultimately, these are the things that you would want as an organization. So from being passive in doing brand tracking, market research, competitive tracking, which most companies do nowadays, we want more organizations to really fully maximize social listening by using it also for crisis identification, customer support, even product innovation, sales, and lead gen. And what this has allowed us as client partners is enable them to make better decisions with greater confidence. Because social listening is all about data and what you do with data. How do you make sense of it? How do you come up with applications? How do you come up with things to experiment with? Given the nature of digital, where you have that space to get immediate feedback, right? And social listening is just no longer nice to have marketing capability. As shown here, there's so many things you can accomplish. There's so many things you can do with more confidence using data. And you can do social listening with different objectives in mind. It can be, again, a passive objective, a reactive, a proactive one, or any combination of these things you see here. Now, in our context, COVID, quarantine, lockdown, what has been made more apparent is the fact that we need to do social listening even more. And it's because of two things. One, because of the ECQ and this particular change and shift in how we do our day-to-day living. More people are on digital. More people are, as Germaine mentioned earlier, spending time using social media, spending time doing searches, watching videos, streaming music. And we see this particular digital shift across not only news consumption, but also it's been seen across entertainment, right? Streaming, for example. Streaming giants like Netflix, YouTube have already limited the video quality that's available whenever you stream your shows, just because of the sheer amount of additional volume of users hogging the bandwidth, the internet bandwidth available for each market. And even on this particular platform or social media platforms like Facebook, we've seen a massive increase of usage. And what's interesting, if you look at the chart on the right, is the incremental changes or in consumption on digital cuts across all demographics. Whether you're a boomer, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, we have all been online even more, right? And the opportunity that's presented here, if you're an organization, if you're a brand, you're a business, is the fact that there's more data to mine. There's more insights to glean from, right? And there's more implementations or executions that you can come up with that have the higher chance of really resonating with your audience, right? Now let me move to the where. So where do we do social listening? What kind of approach do we take? What are the sources that we have to take a look at? I would start by saying that as an organization, you should always do it by listening to your own communities, right? The pages that you manage as a business, your Facebook channel, your YouTube channel, your Instagram account. Listen for conversations from your followers. At the same time, complement that by also listening to what others are saying behind your back or what others are saying about different topics that you can leverage on. We also have to listen not only to public data or behavior, but we also have to look into private data as well. So what do I mean by that? When we say public data or behavior, these are the things that consumers intentionally share publicly, like the posts that they would put up, reviews, blogs, the hashtags they use. These are the things that they explicitly made public through their actions online. That's one really good source. But the other side of it is also to look at private behavior that's also accessible online. And one of the key things that we take a look at when we sort of do our insighting is take a look at search trends and queries. So privately, what are people searching about? What are interesting to them? And how are they searching about it? In what context? And for which particular objective are they searching for those pieces of information? One example of private data is website data that you can actually get a summary of from certain tools. Now, the point I'm trying to drive here is we all need to do social listening, and the sources are there. Whether you have a budget or not, you can do social listening. So there is no excuse not to do social listening because of the fact that there are free tools that you can maximize. If you want to get started with social listening and you aren't sure how to justify the investment, you may consider these free tools, for example, as you start generating those insights from all the conversations that are out there or all the search queries that are out there. There are also technologies that are a bit more advanced, a bit more automated that would allow you to do your social listening more efficiently and with greater analysis, right? So like Digimind, Crimson Hexagon, Nuvian Meltwater. Now I'd like to quickly talk about the free tools that you can leverage. Once more, even if you don't have a budget for a social media technology or platform, you can actually just leverage on your Facebook account, your Twitter account, and these platforms to do your searches, right? Type in any keyword, and you would instantly generate conversations from different people, especially from the local proximity where you're located. So try to generate and take a look at these conversations to see how conversations are moving from topic to topic and how people are reacting to it, right? And are these conversations impacting behavior and habits? The other free tool that you may consider would be to take a look at, on a granular level, how people are using hashtags. So there's a website called Trends24, it's completely free, where you can geo-target and have a really good snapshot of what's trending in a very real-time manner. It can give you data up to 30 minutes, the top hashtags that are being used, up to an hour, up to 2 hours, 6 hours, and 24 hours. If you are doing content marketing, you can leverage on this by quickly identifying what topics you can leverage and have a point of view on. And that's something you can use to create that particular content for your audience. Now, talking about Google search or private data, this is also a free platform from Google that you can leverage. Again, you can insert keywords here to identify the patterns and the trends of people searching about certain topics and keywords. And for example, here I used COVID and ABCBN. These are the recurring issues or conversations that we've been seeing in the Philippines. And for COVID, if you look at the chart on the left, we see an enormous spike right around March 7. And this is mainly because of the news or the discussions pre-lockdown, right? And again, because of this, people began searching to know more about this particular disease and its implications on our country. And comparatively, you can analyze other topics as well. As expected, we see COVID here being very highly searched about. The more recent conversation about the franchise renewal also had a mini spike when news broke out last week, right? And you see here comparatively, did it overlap COVID conversations or not? And using Google Trends, you're also able to identify different search queries and different other related keywords that people use to search about the topic. So for COVID, it's all about what are the cases, the updates on the cases, any news on the regulations for ABCBN. It was about the franchise renewal and co-warranto and other smaller topics. So you can also take a look at and compare web search versus YouTube search. So in terms of YouTube search, we see here that the demand for ABCBN is actually significantly higher versus COVID in regard to YouTube video searches. So these are the types of analyses you can make by simply accessing this tool from Google. And one way we're able to leverage on this is to cross or correlate it with public conversations, right? To validate certain assumptions and certain findings. We always use public data, public behavior, and cross-analyze it with public or with private data or private behavior through search data. So imagine the possibilities here, because you really can input any keyword to conduct your search, to conduct your own listening, right? So now we move to the what. What do we listen for, right? We have these tools, whether paid or free. How then do we leverage? What do we take a look at? Now, as a business organization, at the very least, you should start by listening to yourself, right? What are people saying about you based on the communities that you own, and also based on people who don't follow you, right? What are people saying behind your back? And the more you expand your listening reach, the more insights, influencers, and innovations you're able to unearth, right? So the idea is you start with brand listening and you expand it into competition, industry, market level conversations, topics in the Philippines that are highly relevant, right? You can even expand it further to regional topics and even global topics to understand how people are interacting and what's interesting to them, what's shareable. And when you listen to brand competition in all these other sectors or areas, your goal is to generate insights. Your goal is to identify influencers, right? Whether these are nano or mainstream influencers, social listening can help you identify those. And thirdly, you use social listening to innovate. How do you craft your messaging? Like as Germaine alluded earlier, how do you make it less tone deaf? How do you make it really genuine and engaging and useful, right? Or entertaining? And how do you evolve then your product and services using the data that you get from listening? We have noticed that there's so many different habits that are being formed because of the lockdown. How you stay fit, how you eat, how you entertain yourself, right? How you work. So these are things that you need to take a look at a brand level, competition level, industry level, so that you're able to come up with the best adjustments, right? And the insighting that you do per level allows you to better understand your audience and really zoom in and zero in on the topics that you can leverage, right? Not all trending topics are relevant to you, but if you're able to find that particular topic and able to leverage on it very quickly and release something that's very timely, then you could be one of the winners. And the second bit on influencers, right? Why we need to take a look at all these things to identify influencers is because it's because of how the landscape is really constructed, right? You have people who share, who interact, and the goal on social media is to generate more word of mouth about you, your business, your brand, and what you're all about, and how you make the world a better place, how you ease the cultural tension, right? And how you're able to identify or create a strategy to create brand advocates, right? And in times of crises or pushing a particular campaign, right? Who do you partner with, right? And there are different layers to that as well. You can partner with big name influencers, but there's also value in partnering with smaller pocket influencers that may not give you as big of a reach, but these are highly influential and relevant people, right? And the how of it would be three things, right? How do we fully harness the value of social listening? To get started, you should always take a look at the message and the messenger, right? You should start from there. Whether you're monitoring your brand, your competition, your category, even the Philippine market, always take a look at the message, its validity, its sentiment, and also take a look at the messenger, the author. Is this author influential? Is this author highly engaging? Is this author wide in its reach and has a lot of followers, right? These are the things that you use to analyze and identify, is this particular piece of information useful? What can I derive from this particular tweet or comment, right, or blog post? And what technology has allowed us to do is automate these things so that we can focus on doing the analysis ourselves. Now, a step further to that is what we call business tagging, or this is where we start deepening and diversifying the way we analyze and the amount of insights we're able to generate. So from a single tweet, what types of information can we extract? And from the author itself, what other piece of information can we gather? And thirdly, how do you make your social listening future-proof? Now, the ultimate goal, and this is something that we're further expanding in our organization, is the ability to not only analyze past and present data and do descriptive analysis, but we want to have that ability to forecast future behavior and outcomes, have a more predictive capability that's automated, right? And some examples that I'll show later on would gear on being able to predict virality, right? Without doing loads of manual calculations, and being able to push hyper-personalized content using machine learning. So focusing on one, which is the basic, right? Talking about message and messenger, these are some of the things that you can get. You have a listening tool at your disposal. You can quickly identify where the conversations are coming from, forums, Twitter, Facebook. You see here a word cloud, that's the bottom chart, left side. You can quickly see also the frequency of conversations and how are people talking about a particular topic. The chart in the middle also shows us the smaller communities, the grassroots communities that are pushing the conversations. That would help us also come up with a more robust influencer management approach, right? It's not just about paying big-time influencers to run your campaign. And lastly, tools have given us the ability to shortlist the different messengers, right? According to how influential they are and how often they talk about a particular topic. And these things allow us to quickly make decisions and allow us, using data, to optimize whatever plans we have, whether it's an on-ground activity or digital activation. How we want to move on, though, is from looking at all those things, is to further extract data from the author and the message, right? You see here a sample of a tweet, and just by looking at this tweet alone, we can create and extract so many different data points, right? And extract useful information. And imagine if you do this over time. Imagine if you do this across all the tweets that would come in about your brand. You would have a very good database to use for benchmarking, or you would have a very good source of insight, right? To push a particular product or understand your consumers better. And you can create this in a very customized way. Whatever you want to extract, that can be done and made more efficiently through technology. So this is something that we're always pushing our clients to do. When you do social listening, don't just do it to manage the issues. Use it to unlock all the value. Use it to unlock all these particular pieces of information that you can leverage, right? And the third point on being future-proof, it's really moving into that ability to do predictive analytics, the ability to forecast data, the ability to be able to predict a particular outcome based on historical data. So just a particular piece of example I want to highlight here, the recent article on a particular police official having a party during lockdown. just by taking a look at that story, there are tools that would allow us to map out the velocity of engagement and even forecast how much more viral this content will go in the next 4 days. So if you take a look at the chart here, in the next 19 hours, this particular piece of story is expected to increase by over 200,000 more comments, shares, and likes. And it is actually 6.7 times higher than its usual engagement, right? So imagine if you have this particular level of automation and predictability when you monitor a particular issue about your brand or when you create content, right? Do I really need to leverage on this topic? Is it really viral? Is it really engaging to the people? How much more should I leverage on this particular topic? So this particular capability can help you make those informed decisions right away, right? So another good example, I think everyone can really relate to would be the ability of social listening that you can build into platforms. So the most common example I always use would be Netflix, and the fact that Netflix as a platform listens to what you watch, and using that, it tags certain genres, right? Based on the shows or the movies or the documentaries that you watch. And because of this, it allows the platform to auto-recommend other shows that are likely you would find very interesting and watchable as well. And there are many different ways to come up with these recommendations, right? And these are done instantly. So that's the type of automation that we would want to drive based on listening and using that data to really make content more personal and more available, right? And lastly, I'd like to share who really should benefit from all the listening that you do, whether you focus on your brand or your category or you take a look at your competition. What I want everyone to take away here is that social listening is not just a marketing tool. It's a business tool, right? Social listening allows you to drive value across different areas of the business, right? Whether you're in sales, customer service, marketing, product development, and corporate comms, social listening allows you to calibrate and improve on the things that you offer, how you operate as an organization, and ultimately, social listening results to more satisfied and loyal customers. It really allows you to connect with them closely and something that's really authentic, right? So again, that's how I end my spiel. I really want to push everyone to do social listening. You can start small and scale up and really leverage on those insights to drive more value to your business. That's it.
Yes, thank you so much, Ollie. Mark. Sorry. Yes. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So actually, what I love about the presentation of Mark is that at least he gave us a frame of reference that we can do it on our own. We can do social listening on our own. We don't really need to. We can start small first if we are an upcoming or if our business is still we are an SME. Okay, we don't really need to do complex analysis yet. But again, the message here is that we can take advantage, or I don't want to use take advantage, but there's the message is there's a lot of information that you can gain out of social listening. Okay, lalo na in this time that we are on quarantine and everybody's doing social media posting, going online, we can very well do our research in order to gain ideas on what is being talked about. Is there a nugget of knowledge that we can gain from what customers or what the consumers are trying to research on? what are their pain points, um, and other messages that you can get out there. I love the idea of the Mark. You have that slide. Where do I start? Okay, you can also start by looking at your brand, especially if your industry is in a mature industry. I would think, right? If your industry is in a mature industry, I'm pretty sure that there are talks about your brand in the in the social media space or online. So we start from your brand and then go and look at your competition. You can very well use Mark. You can very well use hashtags here, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
As simple as I did my research, in fact, last early April. I did some hashtag search on the 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 multinational companies in the context of the Philippine setting, and you know what I found out, Mark. I just pulled out those with images, and they were talking about the trash or the amount of plastic that's being uh, that's in our environment out there. And the message that it tells me, okay, just looking at those images, the message that it tells me is that we have a sustainability issue. And we if we are thinking of ways to ease the pain of that kind of a sustainability issue, what can we do in terms of product development or other ideas to help alleviate that problem, no? So again, as simple as just looking at hashtag research or go to Google Trends. You can very well do other other filtering, right, Mark?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Other by location, by age. What are the other ways by which you can do your filtering in Google Trends?
Oh, you can actually also filter according to uh, the the location,
Topics, or even topics, right?
right? It could be a web search or a YouTube search.
Right,
That's something you can also toggle. You can also toggle time frame, and you can also
right.
cross compare multiple keywords. I think you can compare up to
Mm,
6 or 5 keywords here, and you can see how
yes.
the trends are overlapping, right? And what
Mm-hmm,
I find very useful using Google Trends is the fact that you're able to see the actual query that they type, the top
mm-hmm,
queries that are being searched about. Um,
mm-hmm,
the example in the slide, I only typed in COVID as a search
mm-hmm.
term, but Google was able to share with me how people are searching about it as a phrase, right? So
Right,
COVID-19, COVID Philippines, COVID cases.
right.
Right? So really, when it comes to COVID, people are hungry for information, right?
Mm-hmm,
How do they move forward with this particular pandemic happening? How
mm-hmm,
severe is it, right? And that's a piece of information that would really reinforce the fact that this is something that it's really on everyone's minds, right? Not only at a
mm-hmm,
public level they would tweet about it, but also privately. This is what concerns them, right? And
mm-hmm.
imagine if you do this for certain behaviors that you want to test out, like for example, working or snacking. What types of queries are you able to generate, and what types of interesting queries would pop up? So there are different results that you can generate, and hopefully these become useful as you do your insighting.
Interesting that you pointed that out, Mark, because also in the earlier days of social listening, when was the start ba? Back in 2011 ba, if I'm not mistaken. But even in the earlier days of social listening, there's this. Can I mention the brand? Well, it's a U.S. Case study anyway. Frito-Lay, for example, did their social listening around the barbecue. Okay, and because of the various comments or conversations that they were able to generate from just looking at probably hashtag barbecue, this formed their product innovation ideas for flavors. flavors and occasions around barbecue. So that's how they were able to harness the capability of doing your social listening for product innovation. So, Mark, before I move on to Ollie, actually, again, what's nice with the presentation of Mark is that he provided us with a frame of reference that we can start with, and we can later on um, collaborate what the frames of reference that Mark provided with what Ollie will be sharing, and see whether we can on the spot come up with some strategies or some suggestions for our listeners today. So let's go through this, Mark. There are questions from and Ollie, please jump in as well. I'm interested to know more about predictive analytics. Is there a free software or tool available that we can navigate?
Free software for that one. Um, I don't know of any free software at the moment. I think there have been people who use Excel to actually build a predictive analytic sort of software by creating a bunch of complex formulas. So you plug in the data, and it gives you a particular forecast. So you could probably search for several of those online, but specific to social media and the amount of data you're able to pull in, it would be very difficult to do it using a free software, because predictive analytics leverages on big data. And if you don't have that access to the full data of Facebook or Twitter, then it would not be as accurate or as useful. Um, Technology partners like Digimind, they have that access. They have that partnership that would allow them to funnel in all the data, so that whatever algorithm you set for the machine learning and for the predictive results you want to achieve, it's really sound and accurate.
Yeah.
I'm very much with Mark on this. There's plenty of data on social media, and a platform like Digimind can really help to give you pointers. But if you really want to create your own model of predictive analytics, you probably need to inject some of your internal data as well. So only relying on external data is already very, very important, but it won't give you the best results unless you really aggregate all of the data into one single point where you inject also the information that you have internally within your organization. That's where you have the best models. That's where you have the best results.
Well, that's assuming that the data that you are pulling from would be coming from, the vast data that's out there, right? I'm assuming, Melinda, that is your point of reference, because if you have internal data or transactional data, you can very well, and it's not big data. Okay, I'm a statistician, so us statisticians would know how to do the modeling for predictive analytics. But of course, if you're dealing with a huge amount of data already, you would need the tools for that. Okay, all right. So how do we oh, so we answered live that one. Okay, next. Don't you think predicting content virality with social listening and analytics can run the risk of not being accurate? Because content virality is often dependent on news and trends by mainstream media and influencers.
Yes, of course. What you perceive from online data will be just one part of the reality. It's like
Right.
you're sampling what's going on online. So you have a sample of what's going on. Again, if you only rely on one single data source, data point to analyze and come up with conclusions, you of course run the risk of being completely out of the reality. So, and that's probably one of my last slides is, of course, don't take media as the only data point. You will need to go again with like traditional market researches,
Right.
maybe face-to-face interviews and so on. So don't neglect the other data points, because
Yes.
you will run the risk of falling into one very small category of conclusion.
I think the point of Mark earlier is that it's not predicting it in a vacuum, in the sense that I don't think they predicted virality just using that line graph alone. That's not how it works. Perhaps there were other metrics that were considered, and I would advise, being a statistician, you can correlate anything, right?
Yeah.
But will it make sense? So it's always you try to bring in your hypothesis and understand where the metrics that we are going to put into the model before we can do the predictive analytics. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always
So
but not necessarily your sole basis for making decisions.
right. So get the advice of others also,
Yeah.
who are the experts.
Yeah, and
Yes.
to add to that, what you can always do on digital, and there's something quite unique compared to above the line or traditional broadcast advertising, is you can test and learn, right? You can test
Right.
quickly and optimize quickly. So let's say, for example, if you have a virality capability, just like what I shared earlier, you can actually test it on a category level, right? So is this particular algorithm very accurate when it comes to the beauty category versus the food category? And that's something you can always test and benchmark over time, since you have that capability.
Okay. Probably there are some other questions here. Mark, there's a specific question for you. Maybe as we move along to have Ollie present, you can answer some of them. While Ollie's presenting. Okay?
Right.
We will get back to some of these again later on. So I'd like to move on to the presentation of Ollie. So let's hear from Ollie what he has seen from the lenses of Digimind. Here to present, he will be presenting the various trends or ideas that are happening during this pandemic. And he will be providing us the magnifying lens on what's happening, what are the opportunities found online. So we will now have Ollie zoom in. All right. Thank you, Ollie.
Thank you, Germaine, for the introduction. I hope you all see my screen. Use the chat if you cannot. Very briefly, I will introduce myself, Ollie. I've been working for Digimind for more than 10 years and very much supporting the project. So I spent the first few years in Paris and the last 7 years in Singapore, where I'm now based. And I'm supporting all of the clients in APAC. One slide only on Digimind, in case you don't know what we do. We are not as famous as Ogilvy, so I thought it was good to just give a little reminder. So we are a social listening solution, and we have been helping companies make better strategic decisions for more than 20 years. This year is going to be actually 22 years. So we started in '98 as a player in competitive intelligence and market intelligence. And quite naturally, we moved toward social media when, of course, it became bigger and bigger. At the end of the day, we provide a solution that helps people understand what's going on online and apply that to their strategy. I will jump straight into the topic of this webinar and the social distancing and the social listening. I could even say that social distancing is the graph, the picture on the left, and social listening is the one on the right. We know that because of the COVID-19, the world's gone upside down, and we have been forced into new habits, new ways of working, new ways of consuming, new ways of educating, socializing, and so on. So with this social distancing, obviously there's a new behavior for the consumers. People are going out less, spending more time at home. So what are they doing? How do they feel? How are they coping with the new situation? What is the impact on the normal people, basically? So there's a lot of questions that I'm sure we all have. So that's where social listening becomes very valuable, because it will help brands have a better understanding of the consumers. These consumers have less touch point with the brand somehow, so no more face-to-face touch points somehow. To give you an idea, we looked at the volume of data online associated with social distancing. You can see how the volume of data exploded towards the middle of March, and going very rapidly into the millions of pieces of content. It's slowing down now, but it's still producing like millions of pieces of data per week. So basically, how do you analyze all of that volume of information? And this graph is only based on hashtag social distancing, which is not covering all of the situations, to be honest. So I could easily show you different graphs with everything related to COVID-19. You can multiply by 100 the volume of data that you see here. So the very first thing that you will realize when you start going into social data is that the sheer amount of data that you will see online is staggering. Mark just presented that very well as well with his presentation. So we have more and more active social media users online talking, Philippines being on top of the list. So we're definitely talking about big data, infobesity, information overload. So how can you make some sense out of all of that data? How can you turn the data meaningful? So the lack of data is definitely not a question here. It's more, how do you turn that into actionable insights? That's my connection with the social media listening. And I will not elaborate so much on what is social media listening. Mark presented it very well in his presentation. And of course, within Digimind, we have been working on methodologies and activation of social media listening for a lot of different brands. What is important here is just to keep in mind what is real, what is realistic in terms of objectives. Making sure that when you activate the social listening projects within your organization, you know that you will tap into public discussions. Sometimes I've had discussions at the very start of a project where some of my contacts were asking if we could scan WhatsApp discussions or even like Skype discussions. This is completely beyond what social listening can do. So it's really important to be a little bit more realistic when it comes to what you will get when you activate it, and the volume of data that you can expect as well. So within Digimind, I like to say that I put things in boxes. Most of my job is to organize projects, organize the thought process and the objectives for the different projects. When we start looking at a new project, we will look into the different components, the components that we can easily activate, and where social listening can be activated. We came up with six different boxes, 6 different categories. If you want to protect yourself, you want to anticipate the crisis, you want to know what is your reputation, you want to know what maybe the consumer are talking about, which is a connection with the consumer insights. Usually this is associated with the competitive intelligence. When you start looking at your competitors, you start benchmarking yourself versus the competitors. When you move forward with the project, you will start activating more and more of these components. The next one that we see quite naturally is the campaign. Understanding the performance of your content when you run a campaign. Understanding maybe the performance of your competitors' campaigns, benchmarking your campaigns, and activating those campaigns in a real-time manner that you can also react whenever something is not right or when you want to improve real-time the performance of your campaign. The more we see social listening projects evolving and getting more and more mature, we will see additional things like trend detection, trend understanding, innovation, so applying the social listening data to product innovation, for example. And very quickly, we can also make a connection with the influencers, identifying the influencers that you will use maybe to fuel your campaign. I've highlighted the trend tracking and innovation because this is the component that I feel the social distancing falls under. So we are very much trying to understand the trend, what's going on within the market, within different industries, within different audiences. That's where we can jump back to how we structure social listening when it comes to a trend, when it comes to social distancing. So understanding social distancing, as we understand it within Digimind, we can organize it in different buckets. Again, as I said, I like to put things in boxes, and being able to understand if you want to look at a specific audience, still within the social distancing topic, but maybe you just want to target a specific audience. It could be the parents. What are the key concerns from the parents? It could be also that you look at a product or a service. Again, the social distancing has an impact on how people do groceries, go to the supermarket, or order online. And the bigger scope would be if you want to look at an industry overall. So these three buckets also represent three different volumes of data. If you look at a target audience, it's usually a smaller set of data that you will be looking at and you will consider. If you look at a product or a service, all of a sudden, the volume of data will go up quite significantly. If you look at the whole industry, that's where you have the biggest volume of data. So the approach and the methodology that you have to apply for each case will also change. I will not necessarily discuss the methodology here because it's not the point of this webinar, but don't hesitate if you have any questions, and I will be happy to answer them. Okay, so what we've done is that we applied these three different methodologies to the situation. So social distancing, when it comes to understanding the parents, what are the key concerns? And there are two insights we took from all of the volume of data that we analyzed. The first one is the mental health. Mental health of the parents have been questioned and discussed online. So, of course, the parents are very much concerned about the health and the safety of their children, but also the parents themselves will be a key component of the situation. So now that home has become like the epicenter of pretty much everything, the office, the gym, the movie theater, the entertainment ground, the playground, so parents have had to shift also their behaviors. And when we started analyzing the data, we put together and we put side by side, for example, the level of anxiety, how they communicate their fear or their concerns, their stress, associated with the school closures. So at the same time that we had announcements coming from official bodies about the school closures, we were also tracking how the parents were impacted by that through their communication. So definitely there was a clear connection here, and we can see that the mental health is a key concern. At the same time, within that bigger discussion, we also looked into the edutainment, how some of the brands came up to support the parents through original content online and shared for free, making sure that the parents who now have to do a bit of everything, be a teacher, be an employee, be maybe a playground partner for their children. So how do they behave in that context? And very rapidly, we saw that, again, there's a lot of initiatives on brands, and maybe moving forward, this is also something that will remain. The second part that we analyzed was more around the online shopping, grocery shopping. And there are, again, two different trends that we identified. We can develop, and there's more trends. The more you look at the data, the more you find these trends. Here, the starting point was very much, I would say, a simple tag cloud to understand a bit better the situations and things around essential items. Something that came up, and we identified it pretty rapidly on the platform through the different stories, is that there's a lot of solidarity coming from brands. We took the example of, in Australia, of Woolworth, but here, for example, in Singapore, not long ago, we saw Procter & Gamble's providing health packages to the vulnerable people, the people who are more needy, and they provided like 300,000 care packs across the whole country. And this is where we see how corporate social responsibilities started having an impact. It becomes a reality for like normal people, and we have seen that level of solidarity. And one of the other consequences of this initiative, is the fact that there is a strong collaboration across the organizations. Like, for example, here in Singapore, so P&G partnered with the Ministry of Manpower, some of the local councils to distribute all of these packages. Same in Australia, there was an update in the laws to make sure that other organizations will not stupidly compete with each other. So very interesting to see that there is some collaborations on higher levels than just I would say, the normal citizens. And to finish with the trends, the last two are more around the healthcare. And when we started looking at all of the discussions, and this goes a little bit beyond just the social distancing, but also the overall COVID situation. We started analyzing the wheel of the main concepts, and we saw multiple concepts associated with privacy, security, protection of the data protection. So the pandemic is clearly putting some sort of putting at test the line between the privacy and the public security, the public health. If I take the example here in Singapore, we have all downloaded a mobile app for the contact tracing, which of course helps to make sure that the virus is not going to spread. But post-pandemic, post-COVID-19, you may question what will that data become? Do we still need to provide that kind of information? So we can foresee that there will be a big question mark on the data privacy post-COVID-19, and maybe some health organizations will keep requesting those information to the public. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we will lose our privacy and our freedom somehow, but there might be some precautions to put in place when it comes to anonymous, making sure that the data is anonymous or using the right technology. The last point is more about the product development, and here Germaine illustrated that earlier with the vaccine, developing a vaccine for the COVID-19. And here again, we have seen a lot of partnerships. So the original method that we used here to get to the analysis. We started with understanding what were the key movements across the healthcare industry. And we organized these movements or events like partnerships or a release of the financial results or a new hiring. So we have a list of different market events, if you like, industry events that we can apply. And very clearly, the two top events coming up were product launches and partnerships. And then we started digging into the information to identify the trend. I will wrap up my presentation with these, just a couple more slides. This one, again, free tools. So social listening, you can do it whatever is your level of visibility online. If you don't have a lot of chatter online about your brand and yourself, you can still use it to help understand your content, help boost your content performance and content strategy. But then, of course, the more you move into a visible business, the more there will be data about yourself online. So don't hesitate to explore these online tools. And this is my last slide, just as a wrap up. The social listening will help you understand your business environment. I was presenting the campaign, the influencers, the trends, the competitive intelligence. We have plenty of success stories we can share. And there's also plenty of departments and services you can use social listening for and support the whole strategy of your organization. Something that is quite important is the social listening tools. I could easily say that it's just a tool providing facilitated analysis, but of course you need some human intelligence on top of that to make sense out of that data. And that's where partnerships between players like Digimind with the technology background and players like Ogilvy with the knowledge, the expertise of your industry, the knowledge of your business will give you the best results. Social media is just one of the sources. Don't forget the other sources. There's plenty of touch points, internal, external, traditional research, and so on. And don't keep your results just for yourself. Sharing is the key to success. And one of the metrics that we keep track of when we activate a social listening project with an organization is how quickly they get to a collaborative level. It's a clear indicator that you put social listening or online listening at the center of your strategy moving forward. The more you collaborate, the more team you involve into the project, the more insights you will generate and the more strategy you will produce. And I think that's it on my side. I will be happy to answer any of your questions now.
Okay, thank you so much, Ollie, for that. Okay, let's bring in Mark again. Mark, yes, Mark will tune in again. All right, so I really love that Ollie was able to present some of the trends or what's happening out there, and just in the context of social distancing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it is social distancing, and for the target audience of the parents, it was social distancing. When we moved more towards the healthcare industry, I took into account the data related to COVID-19 because it goes beyond just the social distancing. Even though the two topics are strongly connected, when we look at the impact on the healthcare industry, it's very much all of the data coming from the COVID-19.
Actually, even if you have this tool that has all the power that you can think about, all right. it's not just really just having the tool, which is digitalization, right? But really doing your insighting as well. You mentioned, Ollie, earlier that, where do I start? Mark earlier mentioned, a frame of reference in terms of where do I start? How do I start social listening? Okay, you start with yourself, go out, to a bigger environment, check your competitors, check your industry, et cetera, as you become bigger, right? But also, I like the idea of what Ollie presented earlier. Yes, now that I have this nice tool, uh, powerful tool, where do I start? Again, to your point, Ollie, you start with your business questions, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, Mark explained it very clearly during his presentation. If you don't have a focus, if you don't have a clear business objective, you will cast a net into an ocean of data. And I'm pretty sure that you're going to get a lot of rubbish back.
Yeah.
You know what drives your business, and you can put some clear questions. Exactly what the question I've put on my slide. So what are the concerns from the parents? It can be a very simple question, but then our job within Digimind is to translate that into something that you can visualize on the platform.
Right.
And I can easily say that the hardest part of the job is the question.
For me, actually, it's always a collaboration between your leaders and the ones who are going to do the generation of the data. There needs to be that collaboration. I mean, what are the burning questions that top management has? Okay, and therefore, if that question is posed, me as the analyst can now think about, how do I get that information? Where do I get it? And in what form would I need to get it, right? So there's always that need for collaboration within. It's not because you have this tool. Okay, the leaders will say, okay, get me what what you can get out there. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so again, I'm hoping that we are able to illustrate here, how to start off the process. Again, digitalization is one, but really understanding how to use the digital tools is another thing. Okay, I also like the various trends that you have pointed out, coming from your research on social distancing. Oh wait, I have a question. It's not anymore the social distancing; it's physical distancing. But I think for the purposes of this research, because social distancing was the first one that came out as a term. Okay, just to at least elaborate on the potential data that can be pulled from what's out there already. I think that's what Ollie did. All right. At any rate, let's test this. All right. So one of the key ideas that Ollie pointed out is mental health of parents taking a toll. If you see that, that's a pain point, right? Again, in our last webinar, we are talking about, look for pain points, because pain points are opportunities, serve as opportunities. So let's not panic, okay? This pandemic, yes, there are a lot of, we are in a crisis, but the pain points that we are feeling, let's look at that as opportunities. So in this case, mental health of parents are taking a toll. In terms of services, I think there could be some, e-service that can come out of this, no? And
I didn't elaborate much more on the mental health, but there are positive messages as well coming from parents. I didn't highlight them during the presentation, but there are testimonials of parents being grateful that despite the situation, they can have more time with their children, they can look after the studies of their children. So there's some positive thoughts online. It's not just negative. And the second thing is, in terms of the brands and the impact on the brands, obviously, if you show support to the parents during those difficult times, they will remember that. They will, post COVID-19, they will also maybe keep using your services and moving forward, being a client.
So that serves as a good starting point for brands who are serving parents. as a way to engage them at this time. You may not be selling your brand right away, right? But in order to gain more confidence, let's equip the parents, me as the brand, right? Me as the brand, let's equip the parents on how they can, how we can help them, or if there are some inspiration that we can provide the parents at this point in time. I think our brand will be remembered. So again, what we are trying to illustrate here is how do you take action from all of these trends that you are seeing, and just to align this also with what Mark has shared earlier. All of these social listening that we can do can lead to either product innovation or services, messaging. Okay.
And you can apply it across multiple teams, multiple objectives, understanding a bit better what's the vocabulary that the parents are using the same lingo, making sure that you communicate at the right level with the parents all along, all the way to product creation and content creation.
Edutainment as parent, Mark, yes?
Yeah, if I may add, just to further leverage on that insight on mental health taking a toll on parents. If you take a look at it, the universal objective that brands and business would have right now is how do they further humanize themselves as a brand, as an organization? How do you do that, right? And you can do that simply by pushing content that these audiences would consume. And the social media, the more human you are, and the more timely you push your content or your reaction, the more people will stick with your brand, not only during COVID but even after. So the specific insight on that, the mental health taking a toll, maybe brands can push content that would give tips that would help manage the stress. Or maybe a brand can share an inspiring quote or motivational piece of content that may be a good way to sort of de-stress. So there are different things to inject and to be part of those conversations without being too hard.
Right. That's true.
And you're right. It's really about knowing the pain point and knowing the cultural tension. And as a brand, how do you
be sensitive to it?
Yes. How do you become more human in reacting to those? It doesn't always have to be selling your product, right?
Right.
The more human you are on social, the more people are primed to engage and follow you. At the end of the day, that's your goal. You want to create social advocates or brand advocates.
Right.
And you do that by slowly pushing those pieces of content, those inspiring content, or those useful content, or even at times entertaining content for those who are super bored. And these are things you build over time.
Yeah, I think what Oli, you were.
Yeah, I see the chat right now, and Siddhartha, Doris are contributing to the discussion, and I see words like empathy and compassion are now what the brand should communicate, humanizing content. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if there's any time to do social listening, it's now actually. Yeah, because also like a few strokes, you're able to generate all of these information, and then what do you do with it? Again, let's go back to what Mark provided. There are many ways by which we can take action from all of the data that we're able to get. Can we move to, I have a lot of questions, but we can probably prioritize the ones from the audience.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah. Mark, may napusuan ka ba?
Yeah, I've answered several earlier.
All right.
Go
Thank
back
you.
to the ones I haven't
How do
answered.
I do this? Which ones are not yet answered?
Here, do you have other examples of brands who use social listening in the way described today, and the output is something already seeing in the market? So I can probably share brands we've worked on. One would be KFC. So what we've structured for KFC is to create like a mini newsroom where you have people who listen every day, right? And we've expanded that scope to not only listen to brand conversations, but just as what I showed in the slide earlier, expand into competition, category, market, and using that data to react quickly and push content. So the objective is, how do you build the brand by always pushing culturally dialed in content? And one of the things that we're able to blow up quite recently would be, if you were able to catch this, the KFC Goblin Promo. So we found out through listening that there was one KFC staff employee who really looked like the Korean star who starred in the
Okay
Goblin
yun na.
drama series, right? So in 24 to 48 hours, we leveraged on that insight, and we created a quick promo called "Search for the Next KFC Goblin," and it generated over 1 billion impressions for the brand.
Wow.
Even national media picked it up, and it's not only because we're able to spot it, right? It's also because we're able to react quickly. And I think for brands who really want to leverage, it's having that agility while you listen as well. So you do have that content calendar mix that you create.
Right.
But at the same time, if you have that listening capability and you do it routinely, you then have the ability to sort of react quickly and really maximize the relevance of that particular topic. And that's what we're able to do for KFC. So it became one of the best performing sort of incentive-based activations we did for the brand. And it only cost us very little, as in super small amount on media budget and some of the other logistical items. But it was vastly successful. And it all started with listening. So I'm not saying that every time you listen, you unearth something super valuable,
Yeah.
game-changing.
It's just the start
Just the
of
start. The
a
fact
process,
that
yes.
if you don't listen, you won't ever get the chance to spot those. Right?
Yeah. And I would say that agility is one big skill that we can develop at this time, right? Especially since well, things are changing fast. Even if we are in a quarantine period, mindsets evolve, behaviors evolve. Again, we need to practice our agility skills. Okay. There's another question here. Also, given the situation now, the consciousness of the consumers are diluted. How do we ensure that the data we've gathered avoid being skewed?
It's almost like a philosophical.
I think, can I take a stab at that? I think for as long as we know where we are getting the data from, that is a perspective by which you can generalize. Speaking like a statistician, you can generalize. If you're looking at social listening, social if you're doing your social listening, obviously what it doesn't take into account are what's being talked about offline, right?
Yep.
And there would be another tool for that. So I don't know about being skewed. Yeah, anyone would.
There are different things we can answer because it's quite a broad subject. The first thing is the reliability of the sources, and
as well.
I bring quite rapidly in the projects to explain that not all of the sources are equal. It sounds a bit weird, but if you take Twitter, you will see a lot more rubbish on Twitter than if you look at newspapers. You can still we can debate, we can argue, but depending on where you look, you will probably get different quality of content. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And outside of the social media world,
you just really need to be mindful, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to be mindful and use your own judgment. But also outside of the social media world, you have the offline, you have the market research, you have your other data points. So again, don't draw conclusions only on one single data point. That's definitely not a good idea. And then we can elaborate and look more into like these big dashboards where we aggregate all of the different data points, which becomes a little bit heavier. But the process is the same, just having multiple data points to help you see the big picture.
Yeah. My attempt to answer that would be 2 points. One, like what you mentioned, Ollie, it's really try to cross-check social data with other data sources. And
Right.
if there are substantial similarities on the insights and the takeaways, then you'd have greater confidence in saying that this particular insight for that particular group is valid, right? The other way I look at it, going back to what I shared earlier on um, having a better understanding of the message and the messenger. So when we say message, from where was it posted, right? Because you can actually take a look at Facebook and say that it's actually a mixed demographic. And if you have that data to drill down, okay, these particular conversations or reactions are coming from this particular demographic, and it doesn't really add up, then it may not be as valid. Let's say, for example, on Instagram, you have a younger crowd, and the insight that you want to be more firm on would be on their behavior. So I would say I'd have greater confidence drawing conversations from that particular platform, because I know that really you have genuine millennials there or Gen Zers there who are speaking. But at the end of the day, you really can't ultimately confirm whatever they're saying online is what they truly feel offline or on the inside. Um, but you do have also statistical methods that you can really make
Right.
sure that a particular, I guess, insight or topic is sound or valid. So that's why, if you notice today, the prominence of data science or data scientists has really risen, and it's one of the buzz occupations right now, because it's the ability
Mm-hmm.
to really come up with insights that are really sound, um,
Mm-hmm.
and able to really draw good conclusions from them. The other answer to that, I would say, is testing, right? So again, you use the data to test and confirm the insight that you're able to initially draw from that particular piece of data, right? So if we say that, if we're able to draw that millennials are really into snacking while
Mm-hmm.
streaming, right? Then we test that. We push an activity or content to validate that particular insight, and that's one way to sort of make sure it's not skewed. Yeah.
Okay. So, different points of view to help uh, understand whether your data is skewed or not. And there's another question here. So, have you experienced pursuing an initiative as a result of an insight gathered from social listening, but it didn't work out? And on hindsight, you then understood what went wrong, what was done wrong, or not done at all.
I guess
Hmm.
I guess it's the experience.
It's the experience. I was going to say. I think it's the experience, and that's why you probably need an expert to help you navigate through that. I mean, to just guide you, right? I
Yeah.
think like what Mark and Ollie have shared today. Mark provided the frames of reference where you need to start. Ollie provided the frame of reference if you have this big tool. Where do you start? How do you start? I think the expert should be able to point you to the right direction. Okay. All right. How are we going to do social listening in a place where people have poor internet access or no access at all? As in no access at all, mahirap yata yun. I think that's hard.
If there's no mobile data, then there's no
Mm,
data online. So
uh,
it's
at,
quite
at,
complicated.
at the very least naman, you have to have ano, kasi how you ano nga, ang Mark, ikaw sumagot.
Yeah.
Quite
Uh,
important
Oo.
if you want to get insights from online data. Yeah. So
You need to be
you need
online.
stick with traditional listening, I guess.
you need to do
Oo.
the old school listening. You take your
Well,
car and you travel to these places and you ask the people.
Yep.
well, I'm hearing that there's going to be a fourth internet provider. So anyway,
Oh
watch
wow.
out. I don't know. I don't know. So
Um,
yeah, I'm going backwards. Sorry. Also, given the situation, I sorry, I we answered that live already.
yeah.
Okay. Do you have other examples? Did we get this already? Do you have other examples of brands who used social listening in the way you described today, and the output is something we already? You answered
I,
this, Mark.
I think Mark answered. I can also share some case studies in the slides later when I share my slides.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Before I think, wow, time has uh, time flew by so quickly. I think one of the things that I'd like to ask personally, because these are uncertain times, as mentioned, and I'd like to know your points of view. What are the various, narratives have we seen in social media or online that what are the various narratives or themes that we are able to see out there, at least as a starter again, without looking at social distancing only. But uh, Miss Universe question, I'm sorry. So maybe just to make provide a baseline for our viewers out here on what are the various narratives being shared out there. Those can be themes of stories that we can take with us today, starting today, so we can think through all of these and be able to imagine, what are the potential services that I can provide for these stories that people are sharing. Would there be some just some thought starters from your end?
Um, on my side, I would probably suggest to look at the positive stories. That's for
Mm.
sure, and that translates into some of the examples I gave. The collaboration, the solidarity between the people, but also solidarity coming from the brands in the form of CSR, so the corporate social responsibility. These, I feel, are the right values which should be looking at. We should investigate a little bit more,
Mhm.
understand a bit better what's behind, to help and feed that kind of solidarity and collaboration as an individual, but also as a brand. It should be the same. How can you contribute? How can you contribute to the situation and to solve or ease the situation for a lot of people?
Yeah.
That's, of course,
Yeah,
from my point of view, looking at all of the data I've analyzed for the few trends.
that
Yeah.
has implications on sustainability, right?
It has.
Mm.
And it's quite interesting. We work with a lot of NGOs at the moment because we provide a free package for the NGOs to help them be more
Mm.
impactful on the ground. And the NGOs are talking not just the COVID-19, but as a whole, the sustainability of the planet, the sustainability of how we consume, and so on and so on. And it's a
Mhm.
very interesting subject to look beyond just the COVID-19 and see how we can do some good, basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, just
Yes,
to
and
add to that,
Mark.
one more theme that has stood out, based on the listening that we've done also, would center around self development and learning new things
Mm.
generally. So
Mm-mm.
um, whether you're a Gen
Growth,
Z, a boomer, it's about self
right?
improvement, self development. What were the things that I used to do that I'm not doing now? Maybe I can sharpen those skills. Or what are the things
Right.
that I've been wanting to learn and do but haven't had the time to do in the past? Now that we're in lockdown, there are so many people who self-reflect and sort of have that greater initiative to learn and improve on certain skills or areas that they feel can get better. That's one
Yeah.
area that we've noticed across different
Mm.
demographics, whether you're talking to Gen Zers or millennials or, or the other groups.
Yeah. So those are very good thought starters, more for the betterment of the world and betterment of self. So with that, actually, we'd like to thank you so much for sharing your time and experience, and we hope we can continue with this conversation. Please feel free to get in touch with Mark or Ollie or myself for any additional questions. Before we end, I would like to request there's going to be a QR code that will be flashed on screen, and I'd like this links you to the evaluation form. Please, we need your help in and your comments on how else we can improve on our webinar. And while we're doing that, please take some time. It's just short lang naman. Okay. And a few more announcements as you are doing that. We are going to do our next webinar next week, May 28th. May 28th. May 21, 4 p.m. And this is about building meaningful brands through consumer insighting. We will be announcing the speakers or the panelists who will be joining us next week. And also, please mark your calendars, May 28th at 4 p.m. The following week, so 2 weeks from now, we will be having media and content insights moving forward, okay, as a topic. We'll be announcing again also who the panelists will be. And before I end this webinar, I'd like to leave you with this quote from Jeremy Goldman, who is the CTO and author of Going Social, Excite Customers, Generate Buzz, and Energize Your Brand with the Power of Social Media. And he said, listening is one of the most important things a brand can do online. If your brand is just broadcasting its own agenda, it isn't truly engaging in a conversation. So let us start or continue to create engaging conversations by listening to our customers. We hope that this webinar helped you in a way that your brand will be more meaningful in this day and age and in this unprecedented time. Thank you everyone for joining our ePanel webinar. Join us again and please check the announcements. I'm Germaine Reyes, CEO of Synergy Market Research and Strategic Consultancy, saying bye-bye and see you next week. Thank you so much for being with us and staying tuned in up until now. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Germaine. Thank
Ollie
you, Mark.
and Mark. Thank you. Thank you so much.